Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga Texas construction update video. All right, I hope you had a great Labor Day weekend. I took the day off on Monday, so I am back at flying and I've got a lot of news to go through. First up, if you haven't heard, there's been an amazing trip from Florida all the way up to the Arctic Circle to take 2 Cybertrucks and see if they could make that entire trip. It was organized by Teslatino and also Bearded Tesla Guy. And these great images here give you an idea of what that entire trip was like. Thousands of miles, I don't know, dozens of supercharger stops, a lot of other great events along the way. And also they helped install V2 chargers along the route that they took. So if you would like to follow in their footsteps, I would recommend that you watch their YouTube channels or check them out on X. And also, as you can see, Wes, the chief engineer for Cybertruck, kind of endorsed their trip as well. So anyway, awesome effort. Keeping with the winter Cybertruck theme, the Tesla store now has a Cybertruck wheel and winter tire package for $3,000. It includes 4 sets of 20-inch wheels, tires, and also tire pressure sensors and nuts. Take a look at the website and the design studio, also in the shop, for more information. Switching gears, here's an update on a much anticipated event on October 10th. Tesla's Robo-Taxi presentation and also unveiling will be held at the Warner Brothers studios out at California. And we've got a lot of information and news releases about this. Why would they want to go out there, you might ask, is they have about 110 acres of city streets that are able to be used without having to have all the permits and make sure that it is a safe event. So it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully you get a chance to get a ticket, and information about that should be forthcoming from Tesla very soon. And finally, a piece of information about 2 interesting space-related events that may be coming up on Friday. The uncrewed return of the Boeing Starliner coming off of the International Space Station, and earlier that day, possibly Polaris Dawn, that SpaceX's mission with the Polaris program will be launching 4 astronauts and doing the first civilian spacewalk, and also setting a record for the highest altitude away from Earth since 1972. So if that happens, I may be covering that in the morning, and that may affect my drone schedule. I will keep you updated as we get closer to Friday to see what happens. But 2 huge space news items coming up in about 48 hours. All right, it's time to get into the drone, fly around, and see what Giga Texas looks like after this long break since my previous video. If you would like to support my efforts, please consider using these links, which will be in the video description. If you are interested in Tesla products, you can help yourself and support me by using my referral code. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons on my YouTube video, as this helps as well. Thank you. My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga Texas. Well, good early morning here on a Wednesday at Giga Texas after the long Labor Day weekend. So this is my first flight in about 4 days. So let's take a look at what is going on here, starting on the west side of the South Extension. We do note that there are many Cybertrucks being stored here along the fence line at the bottom of the screen. A few are coming out of the factory at that main exit point next to that temporary platform. And a few more are being stored just to the north of this trailer. So as I continue to kind of maneuver the drone around, this is a good look at all of these Cybertrucks. This is the beginning of production for this early morning. However, what we're going to see is during the weekend, almost all of the outbound lot was emptied out, and they're in the process of replenishing that. So that'll be a little later. On the ground, we see some excavation work in and around where there have been some underground pipes. Good view here of that asphalted section entering into the building and that new interior wall getting that texturized treatment. Good view of more interior walls, some of the equipment on the ground. It looks like there are some cabinetry, possibly more for the Cortex supercomputer data center, and a lot of other building materials as well. Since I'm at this location, I'll bring the drone down lower, zoom in, and give you a view of the work that's going on with the boring tunnel. You can see that kind of a white structure on top of the tunnel. That's going to be part of that facing entrance for the tunnel itself. There's additional trench work around the tunnel. Looks like it may be for some additional pipes. Also on the ground level, we can get a good view of some of the platforms. There is a elevator. It's in the middle exact part of the screen, right underneath the orange lift. And we've been seeing that go up and down to multiple floors often in the previous videos, but not active at the moment that I'm flying right now. Good view of all the pipes, pumps, and heat exchangers underneath the mezzanine and what the mezzanine looks like right now. It looks like also some crates have been installed or at least delivered to that mezzanine level. As I pan the drone to the southwest corner, I will bring the drone up slightly and give you a view here of the activity around the north part of the cyber pond. Also, the work on the south end with the 3 tunnels, the grade work, and also some of these very large white pipes, and that's part of the roof drainage system. And next to the tunnel itself, you can see the trench with some of those pipes, and they will tailor off into the cyber pond, I believe, as part of the water catching system for the roof. Now the roof has got multiple acres of flat space, so there will be a lot of water that will collect during rainstorms. Good view of the tunnels. All of them now have the doors on the front face. They looks like they may be preparing some of the steps and also preparing for the grade right up to the tunnel. In this case, we can get a good sense of the dirt that's been piled right up to that weatherproof or waterproof membrane paint that they have put on to the structure. As we continue to the southeast corner, a view of the activity, the cars, the generators on the left, and a view into the ground floor where there is activity with the plate type heat exchangers. Those are the silver and red items next to where the manifolds are on the ground. You can see a steel structure around that area, also the interior walls, and a new section here in the middle of the screen with formwork preparing for concrete directly underneath that mezzanine level. Here's a good close-in view of those plate type heat exchangers and the manifold that I mentioned. And as we pan back towards the chiller plant, good view of some of the pipe work that is underway just inside the extension, the concrete apron area, the pumps and pipes to clean out the cooling system, all of the pipes and manifolds underneath the structure. Looks like there are some pipes that have now been installed vertically, and with the holes on the wall, we look like we're going to see another 4 more installed, and more work on that railing on the roof section next to the fans. Good view across the way towards the line pond and the multi-level parking garage and River Roads extension. Also up the entire east length of the building. And as I continue to maneuver the drone around, a view of the east side of the chiller plant. It looks like there are some more temporary stairs that have been installed on this east side, and a good overall view of that south end. While we are here, I'll pan the drone up to the north, get a good view across the line pond to the original pond, and that multi-level parking garage, which has the shuttle buses picking up many of the Tesla workers arriving for work today. And we continue to see that privacy fence on the east side ground floor of the parking garage. and also those light posts that are still being stored on that dirt section next to the roadway. I think some of that may end up going into the median as well of Robotic Avenue. So I'm going to fly back towards the south. We'll cross over the Colorado River and briefly take a look at the natural gas pipeline installation that's part of the lateral extension for the Sand Hill Energy Plant. Nice views looking north over the Colorado River to the south end of Giga Texas. Also a great view of the end of line and the outbound lot on the upper left. We can tell that more of the pipes have been laid out and preparation work continues for that horizontal drilling on that side of the highway. And as I've changed positions, I'll show you the work in progress with the horizontal drilling machine in action, doing the drilling and bore that goes underneath the highway over to that other clearing, which you can see on the right-hand side of the screen. Also a great view here looking across the Colorado River and this green belt, which is part of the ecological uplift that Tesla funded about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and restored much of this land and the trees. Also a great view of the main factory, the West Warehouse on Wheels, River Road at the bottom of the screen, and the material staging yard on the upper left. I wanted to come over this direction to get a closer look at all of the materials that are being staged in this triangular lot. And I also noticed something very interesting. We'll come back and take a look at the middle of the screen, but there are more transformers, electrical transformers, that are being stockpiled here. This is in addition to the 72 that we'll see later in the material staging yard. This area with the dirt and the ponds is where they are excavating the dirt needed for the south end grade between those three tunnels. And you can tell that more trucks are picking up the dirt to take over to finish up that work. This is part of a continuing process to reclaim this part of the site, and eventually it'll be used for something, perhaps a construction project or maybe some more parking lots or outbound yards. But speaking of which, this is a great view of all the steel items being stored on the left-hand side of the screen. No real movement in the recent past, but also more materials on the bottom right. In the center of the screen, and I will zoom in, I notice that there are more of these transformers. These are slightly different in design and manufacture to the 72 that we'll see in the other material staging yard. But this brings the total number of transformers on site to over 70. And we'll continue to monitor this to see where they are used and if they are in fact a part of the support infrastructure for the Cortex supercomputer data center. As we cross over the lower power lines, come over to the material staging yard, I wanted to show you some detail items. First, we have these pipes and segments. This is part of the baghouse filtration plant, and they temporarily stockpile these items here until moved over for installation. And we also see more pipes, those green ones that are associated with cleaning out the cooling system for the cooling plant. More of these white items that I believe are part of platforms, and the 72 other transformers that are being stored here. In addition to that, they have a fenced-in yard with large spools of cable that are part of the electrical system that is being pulled through many of the conduits and along the parapet roof of the main factory. You will notice that the outbound lot is very vacant today, and we're just starting to see some of the Cybertrucks being delivered over to the site from the factory right now. And once they do initial processing, they're storing them on the north end here temporarily. Over the weekend, they had a big push for transportation and they emptied out the entire lot. So what we see here is new production. On the ground, we see this splitter box that is part of the underground water management system. Many of the pipes will connect to it, and they run to the south underneath the outbound lot as part of the drainage system to make sure that Giga Texas and this part of the site does not flood in heavy rains. I'm going to pull away to the north briefly. I wanted to stop at the material staging yard with the 2 white tents, take a look at some of the materials, if there's any changes, and really not a lot, but on the left-hand side of the screen, the natural gas pipeline installation work continues. And this is following the highway on the left along this route next to the end-of-line facility, underneath the boring tunnel, and then underneath the Colorado River where we saw the horizontal drilling underway. I did notice here in this culvert with these 3 stainless steel or corrugated steel pipes, we have blue pipe being run through this area, so that is a new change. And on the north end of the end-of-line facility, very busy with Cybertrucks. We do see the clean-off station and many of them entering into the building. What we do not see much of is Model Ys right now. It's almost all production for Cybertrucks. Not sure if that's a strategic decision on Tesla's part or if this is related to production line upgrades and changes that are going on inside the factory to support new products later this year. But I'll continue to monitor that. The South Supercharger lot is reasonably busy, almost all Cybertrucks again. And I've been trying to see if any of the wheel covers are attached to the vehicles here at the factory. I've heard that they are shipping them in the beds to the sales and service centers rather than having them on the vehicles, and I cannot confirm that, but that seems plausible. As we fly over more of the natural gas pipeline and the conduit that will serve the tunnel operations on this side of the site, the biggest thing that I notice is most of the cleanup and the relative few numbers of equipment and materials that are left over here from the tunneling operation. This whole area looks really cleaned out. And I think once the conduit and the natural gas pipe excavation work is completed and goes underneath the tunnel, we'll start seeing more of that facing structure under construction. So let's get ready to cross over the highway and resume on the other side. I wanted to stop here and take a look at the flagpole installation. Other than the fences and some of those red markers around them, not a lot of change in the last 4 days. And what's possibly happening is they're letting the mounts cure. And you can see those holes into the concrete mounts. I think they will use that to insert in the large poles and then mount them that way. So still waiting to see what those flagpoles are going to look like and how large they are. And from what I'm being told, they should be quite massive. As we fly to the north along the west side of the factory, we can get a good view of just some of that excavation work on the right where the ground is still bare of concrete. Again, not a lot of change in this area. Not sure if they have a change of plan or if they're just waiting for something to happen. And we'll continue to monitor that. Now we do see here on the northwest corner, the yellow moisture barrier has been placed in this new excavation. Also looks like there may be a grate possibly for drainage. And then we will see rebar, which is on the ground, fashioned into the rebar mesh. And then concrete will be poured. And we'll take a look as this develops to try to figure out what new equipment or what purpose that will have. Immediately above on the roof, we see more work with these ducted fans, frames for what looks like more mounts, and also those cleaned sections on the roof weatherproof membrane. Looks like that's where a lot of that is going to be mounted. I'm going to pull away from that area over the roof itself, and we're going to take a look at what is going on the east side of the factory. And as we stop here, one of the things I want to point out and have you look for is all of the castings that are all along the east, northwest, north, and northeast side of the factory as we maneuver around. Now this concrete apron section is in the process of finishing curing with the vehicles on it. We see that wall that's being put on the north end, And as I continue to pan around, as I mentioned, just note all of the castings. Virtually all of these castings are for Cybertruck, and they extend quite the bit of the length of the factory, even in between some of the trailers in the receiving doors in the middle right of the screen. Now, in the temporary lot, we see many more Cybertrucks that have been manufactured but are being held here for either last-minute checks, additional parts, or some additional details that need to be worked out before they are taken over to the outbound lot. On the dirt section here, more of the pipes and sections and components that are needed for the south extension. And that work continues, and we see this material kind of changing out with the inventory fairly often. So it looks like different kinds of pipes today. Looking across this lot is a better view of the number of Cybertrucks that are temporarily stored here and what this looks like. So again, it looks like to me the Cybertruck production is robust, and with all of these castings all along this entire section of the building, it looks like that is the main priority at this time. As we approach the baghouse filtration plant, a good view of all of the castings on the ground as well. What we see is more of those pipe segments that I showed you over on the west staging lot has been brought over here for installation. Work on the tanks on the right, the large filtration units in that multi-story stacked structure on the left, and these funnels with those kind of rounded second funnels. That's part of a spinner box that will clean out by just motion larger particles to keep them from getting into the filters. Good view of the concrete apron, the work that is being done here. Most of the concrete work has been completed on the main apron. We see 4 of those large footings with the rebar, and the frames have been placed on the east side in that large ground clearing area. Also, we see that steel wall that has been attached to those columns. And I'll bring the drone down lower for a better view of that. Looking to the south, a good look into the baghouse filtration plant and a closer view of those footings on the left, that steel wall that I mentioned with those columns on the right, the rails that will be serving the receiving doors with mounts on the end of the rails, most likely for maneuvering the dies for the Giga presses in and out and over to the die shop for maintenance or development. Another great view of all of the castings that are kind of overflowing the site today. In addition to that, cables being pulled through the conduit in the left-hand side of the screen. Most of that work here has been completed, and deliveries of steel studs for interior walls continues. As I mentioned, a lot of castings, and it will continue all along the north face of the building. In addition to that, work continues with hooking up these 4 trailer chiller units with their electrical cables and the tray mounts, and also those blue pipes going into the structure. As I mentioned, all of these castings are for Cybertrucks, so that continues even to this part of the site in front of the 2 platforms for the 4680 battery cell production portion of the factory, on the ground here as well. And as we continue around the northwest corner, we see even more being stacked here on this part of the site. To my knowledge, this is the very first time we've ever seen castings being stored here, and it just gives you an idea of the sheer number of castings that are being produced at the factory right now. So crossing back over to the highway, wanted to give you a different perspective of this material staging yard with those 2 tents, and all of the cables are actually the pipes for the natural gas pipeline. The 2 different colors, as mentioned before, one of them is a treated pipe that is suitable for pulling through sections into the ground, and the other one is a different kind of pipe, but they both work together to support the natural gas that will continue for all the way from the Sandhill Energy Plant along the west side of the highway to this point. See the pipe going into the horizontal bore underneath Tesla Road, exiting on this side, And what they're building here is a terminal of sorts. There's going to be a lot of the pipes, and they will be kind of going north-south directions here in a variety of different patterns, very much like a terminal. What happens from here, I'm not sure. The site plan documents that we reviewed a few weeks ago in one of my videos doesn't really give us any inclination of what happens after here. So it'll be something we can watch. This is a good view from here across Tesla Road to the south, the end-of-line facility, and also the main factory, and how it looks from this vantage point. Crossing back over the highway, taking a look where we just came from. This is a great view from the north, looking directly at the factory, and on the bottom left is the work that is underway for more of that cable being pulled through the conduit. And I mentioned at the northeast corner of casting that the work there had been mostly completed. That continues up to this area, and it works its way underneath the ground to this kind of a bridge. And today they are actually with these front-end loaders or telehandlers, depending on who you would like to listen to as far as what these are called. They are holding up some of the cables, and they are helping with the workers to pull them through the conduit and then run them across those trays in that structure. And I'm pulling away, keeping the zoom in because I wanted to show you where more of the cables are being pulled through, and the spools are being positioned onto those orange spool holders. That helps with pulling those cables as well. Again, all of this connects to the electrical switch yard you see in the center upper part of the screen, through this area under Tesla Road to the northeast corner of the casting machine structure, and then it runs along the parapet wall the full length of the building and down to the Cortex supercomputer cluster. As I bring the drone in lower here, I wanted to take a look at more of the spools of cable, the trailer for the operations of the electricians that are doing all of that electrical work in the conduits. And I also did notice something changing, and I wanted to give you a view, and that is in this water detention pond, there's some excavation work on the bottom, and it kind of goes over to that concrete vault. So what they may be doing is enhancing its drainage system and preparing for when we have a lot more rain that will be coming this fall to Giga Texas. But this first time in a while I've seen any work done on the water detention pond next to the electrical switch yard. So I'm going to reposition over past the Martin Marietta batch plant and operations in the center of the screen, and just give you a quick view of what is going on here at the die shop and battery cathode plant. I'm going to stay at mostly a higher altitude today, just to give you an overview. There are a lot of vehicles here. Those are employees working in the site. That gives us a great indication that something is definitely underway inside. Stopping here briefly, let's see if there's any changes with the materials. It looks like the white and red bridge crane and that cylindrical steel item is still here waiting for movement. As I approach back to the east side of the cathode plant, I did notice a lot of Model Ys parked in these parking lots. And I don't know if these are, I'm assuming that they are employee vehicles, but it seems like they are all Model Y. So very interesting. And also the crash test facility with many of the crash tested vehicles continues to be very busy, and it's part of their continuing process to ensure that Teslas meet their safety ratings and also for future development. Well, that'll bring my first video of September 2024 to a conclusion. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. Have a great rest of the week.